This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, Siddhi.
Yes, Niket ma'am, you can go ahead, ma'am, with the welcome
Once I
address,
click
ma'am.
recording, it's asking for adding notes.
It's recording, it's enabled, ma'am.
Okay, fine. No, I'm not able to get that page. Participant list,
Yes.
I'm not able to get.
Okay, fine, ma'am. You can go ahead, ma'am.
So, am I audible to all? Siddhi, I'm audible?
Yes, ma'am, it's audible. Yes, ma'am, it's
Yeah.
audible, ma'am. You can give the welcome address, ma'am.
Good morning, everyone. On behalf of St. Joseph Institute of Technology, Department of IT, I welcome you all on the fourth day of STTP on machine learning. And I'd like to introduce our speaker, Mr. Prakash Kumar Babu. He is an experienced data engineer with demonstrated history of working knowledge in IT industry. He has completed his bachelor's degree in sacred heart knowledge. Participants, I kindly request you to please mute your audio. Please cooperate with us. Yeah, today's speaker is Prakash Kumar Babu. He is an experienced data engineer with demonstrated history of working knowledge in IT industry. He has completed his bachelor's degree in Sacred Heart College and master's degree in St. Joseph's Institute of St. Joseph College of Engineering. And he was working in Cognizant Technology Solutions and currently working in Infosys as big data developer at Data and Analytics Unit. He is having experience in pharmaceutical and banking domains. I welcome you, Mr. Prakash.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Now I hand over the session to Mr. Prakash Kumar. And
Okay.
before starting the session, I request all the participants to please mute your audio. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning, honorable representative. So I'll be sharing some. Today, the session will be on the big data and machine learning. Ma'am, can you share me the
One second.
ball?
One second, Prakash. I will share. Yeah, I have made you as presenter.
Okay. Can you able to see now?
No, Prakash. Yeah, now it's visible.
Okay.
The screen is
Okay.
visible now.
Okay. Yeah. Very good morning, honorable representative. So today's session will be on the big data analytics and machine learning. So yeah, today's agenda is like so these are the topics I'm going to cover today. So I'll be giving a brief intro about the big data and some evolution of the data and comparison between the traditional and current big data and the relationship between the big data and the machine learning and some trend analysis and some views of big data and the domains and how they are using in their current life. And then I'll be giving an intro about Hadoop and Spark technology, and I will be showing some use case, and I will be giving a demo on Google Cloud Platform. Okay, let's start. So, okay, first of all, what is big data? So we'll see the basic definition from the Gartner. So this is big data is the data that contains greater variety arriving in increasing volume and with ever higher velocity. So Gartner is a research consultant, so they are giving a good research content. So as per them, so they are considering it is a big data is a greater variety of I mean greater variety of data which is coming in a highly increasing volume, and it is having a greater velocity of the data also. And then with Wikipedia definition, so it is a field that treats way to analyze, systematically extract information from, rather otherwise deal with data set that are too large or complex to dealt by traditional data processing application software. So based on this definition, so we come to a solution that the data which is I mean these data are not having a big complex, these are having a very big data, and which is having a uh, which are generated very speedily. So these data cannot be processed with the traditional way. So for that we are getting a distributed process to handle those data. So for that we have a technology called Hadoop for handling that. So I will be sharing those detail in coming slide. So first of all, we'll see the evolution of the data. So first of all, when we consider the data in initial stage, we'll be managing the data in manually, like we'll keeping the records, some files, we'll be using the data in manual process. But due to some security reasons, some maintenance issue, yeah, we came to a we started to use uh, hello, is it
Yes.
audible?
Yes, audible. Wait a minute. Dear participants, kindly cooperate with us. Kindly mute your audios. It's getting disturbed during the sessions. It's a request from the organizing team. Yes, Prakash, you can go ahead, Prakash.
Okay, so sta we started storing the data in systems and machines and computers to avoid some uncertainty, to avoid the loss of the data. But at the early stage, we used to generate the data. But by using the current trend, so we are not only the generating data, but now machines are generating the data. So while machines generate the data, it is becoming a very um, complex process, and it is generating per second multiple records. So we are using those data to uh, retrieve the insights. So when you see the evolution, so previously we used to store that in a floppy disk kind of thing, but now it is a very big, and we don't have a physical storage unit to store us. So for that we are depending on some third party like cloud technology or some distributions to store it. So I'll be sharing some cloud technology and in my following slide. So this is the basic evolution. So from floppy disk, and we have evolved, and we are having a tremendous amount of data, like not even GBs and TBs, it is a zettabyte and petabyte of data we are having, and that needs to be stored and that needs to be analyzed. So for that we come to a solution called a big data technology. So let us see what is the traditional data and now current big data. So in traditionally it was very structured, and we used to do the repeated analysis on that. So previously, business users determines they will ask us some questions, and based on that, we'll be giving some reports and we'll be answering to them. But now it is reverse process. We have the data, so we have a multiple data, and we are asking the business users to ask the questions rightly. So if they ask the question rightly, they will be getting the insight based on their question. So the important point is, previously based on their questions we are generating the data, but now data is available. The only thing is we need to ask the correct question to get the insights from that data. So previously it was a very structured, it is like a row column format, and it is a very structured way. But nowadays it is not like that. So by using the traditional like SQL, like normal data warehousing, it is not enough to handle the unstructured data and some semi-structured data. For that we have a in big data approach we have some technologies to handle it. So next is okay, now we'll come to the relationship between the big data and machine learning. So when we are considering the machine learning, you may ask why we need to consider big data. The if you see the trend, machine learning is there for almost 50 years or 40 years. The algorithms are there back 40 to 50 years. But in recent 5 to 4 years only, these machine learnings are coming, it's booming, and we are using it. Do you know how why it is trended? So behind that, we have a big data technology which is evolved, which was coined on 2006 by Google actually. So I'll be giving the timeline of process. So this big data, mostly the machine learning and artificial are mostly depend on the training data. So when you want to train a model, you need a historical data to process it. This historical data is not like a we don't have a handful of data. We need to process some monthly data, yearly data to get train a good model. So if you consider a months and years of data, then you may end up like a size of data will be very large, which you cannot do by the basic Oracle or basic MySQL. So that will become a big performance issue. You may end up the storage will be very less. The size of the data is very big, so you will be facing some infrastructure issue also. So to overcome that, we have so this is the Hadoop timeline. So if you see, Google published a GFS paper, so on 2003. So this is the basic backbone of Hadoop development. So based on this GFS, which is a Google file system, so they released how they are maintaining the data. So previously, I mean, this artificial intelligence and some machine learning was there, but only few companies are was analyzing the data and they were giving by using the supercomputer. But that supercomputer is not a chip, so that is a very costly, and that need to be in a big very infrastructure need to be very need to be good. So for that, only some handful of companies were doing the AI and machine learning, and one of them is a Google. So they released their process, how they are doing the how they are storing and how they are giving. So this is the GFS is a paper that that gives a detail about how they are storing and how they are managing the data. And the second one is a MapReduce. So this MapReduce paper describes about the processing of the data. So based on this storage and based on this MapReduce, how they are giving the data, processing the data, they have given the white paper. So based on these two white papers, there is a new sub project was developed in Yahoo, which is a Hadoop. So this Hadoop project is a is the uh, open like a open trend for big data. So this gave the idea how to handle the this kind of data and the processing and all. So based on this Hadoop project, so they develop. I'll be giving a more details on the Hadoop and Hadoop components. So if you see, the timeline was 2006. So this 2006 is the year they developed, they introduced the Hadoop structure, and continuously they were upgrading, and they introduced some more technologies, and they introduced some more open projects, and it was developed at 2006 level. Now let's see the Hadoop AI trend. So this is the trend based on the Forbes. So if you see the trend, so this trend started. So this is the investment from the AI startups. So many companies are investing. So now they are started to invest on machine learning projects, some AI projects. So if you see the year they started, it is on the 2006, and some it was drastically improved after 5 years, which is the Hadoop was become popular at that time. So, I mean, I'm not telling big data is the complete reason, but it is the main reason for converting and utilizing the AI technology. So after that, if you see the research scholars, they have analyzed more on the AI. It got improved because they have a ability to work on their POCs, proof of concept. They can do the some by using this big data technology. It started to use and they started to give insight from there. And based on this requirement and this AI papers, research scholars, the skills for AI skills is also increased in I mean in 2015. From 2015, it is a big demand for us for AI engineers and big data engineers. So this is one main reason where machine learning got popular in the recent days. That is one feature is big data, I would say. And let's see. So now we'll see about the V's of big data. So when we consider the V's, I would say these are the problems. So these are the problems we have in the market. One is the volume. It is a huge amount of data. And next is the velocity, the speed of the data. And variety, the different kinds of data. And veracity, some uncertainty and inconsistency in the data. And the fifth one is a value, extract useful data from this stored data. So yeah, I'll be sharing a thing. Next, first we'll see data volume. So data volume, if you see the data evaluation, we will be coming to so I mean conclusion that 90% of the data generated which is available now is generated in back 3 years only. So 3 to 4 years only we generated a tremendous amount of data by using by evolution of the digital transformation, by evolution of the cloud technology. So these opened a big um, platform to generate many kind of data and many types of data. So this is the main problem for industry to store and to process the data. So if you see the 90% is created only at uh, 5 years of trend, and that became a very big problem for the companies to solve. So for that they by using the Hadoop technology, they used the HDFS to store the in distributed way. So I'll be giving that architecture how it will be working in later slide. And second is a velocity, which is a speed. So per second, per minute, multiple data is generated. So if you see like we will take a social network. So previously I mean that we don't post that much of data, but now we have a video data. Videos are generated like YouTube, in tweets, Facebook photos, Instagram photos, and Google search per minute will be generating a tremendous. So that data that need to be analyzed at the same time. If you do that in batch process, you will be losing. So if you the late decision will leads to a missing opportunity. For example, we can take an example of fraud. So you are doing some online transaction, some online transaction happened without your knowledge. So that need to be informed you at the same time. So they in back end there will be a streaming application running from the bank side to um, uh, give a alert to you. And we can also take an example in the healthcare. So if a patient is monitored, sometime that there will be some lack of the some lack in his pulse or something will happen. So at that time, that automated system like IoT systems, they inform that to a nearby nurse or some nearby doctors. So they will be taking care of that patient at that time in a minute or in a 5 minutes. So if we don't act on the data in a correct time within a minutes or within a hours, then there will be a problem. And you can also take an example in the share markets also. So some shares need to be monitored, and that we need to take a decision on the shares how you need to buy or sell the tax. shares and all. So that velocity of the data is coming at the very speed, and we need to act on the data at the same time. We should not take a rest, and we should not do that. In some scenarios we cannot do that, so that is also one problem. And third is a variety of data. So we'll be seeing a structured data, semi-structured data, unstructured data. So previously we were only using the structured data, but now we have a semi-structured data, which is a log data, which will be coming in JSON format or XML format, or some log data will be generated. So based on the logs, you will be monitoring the machines, or monitoring the IoT devices, monitoring the servers, and you need to take an action on. So for a semi-structured data in traditional way, there was no proper solution, proper way to handle those data. But by using the big data concepts, we can able to handle that. And the third is the unstructured data. So this is the main data type which we are mostly involved, like video surveillance, like photo image vision processing. So like if you take a example, yesterday they were giving a good explanation about the image processing, and also how they are doing a breast cancer detection. So that was very helpful for the patient. So the doctor was missing, doctor missed that data, but but the ML model predicted that, and it gave the solution. So if you see that human can make a mistake, but sometimes machine overcome our human's process and they are giving. But if you take the old way, it was not process it this unstructured data was not able to monitored, and we were not able to process this. But now in the current trend, we need to use this data, we need to use all kinds of data to get the good insight from those. And the fourth one is the veracity, the uncertainty of the data. So if you consider a big large amount of data, you will not get the all data accurately. There will be some issues, some problem in that. You need to tackle that, you need to handle that data. Without handling them, that uncertainty, you will not get a quality data. If you don't have the quality data, you will be end up in the wrong prediction, and you will be end up in the wrong, you will be getting a useless predictions only. So we need to handle those yeah, issues in the real time. We need to solve those uncertainty of the data also. And when you solve this volume, these four problems, like volume, velocity, variety, and veracity. So if you solve these four problems, you will be getting a good insights, good value. So you have a problem, you have a solution, and you need to take action of that to get a value from that. So this is also the main part where machine learning comes. So you have a big data, but what is the use of the storage? We need to act on that data. So without keep, I mean, the ideal data is not used, we need to act on it. We need to get we need to do something with the data to get the insight. So that way business will improve their economically. They will be giving a good solution for us. So these are the five problems, I would say. So these are the five problems which we have in current trend by using the traditional. So these problems we can solve by using some big data technologies. Okay, now we'll see the industries and how they use. So if you see there are multiple domains, and they are using these big data and machine learning concept to give a better solution for us. So if you see the banking and finances covers the 30%, they are highly using this machine learning and big data concepts, and the 13% is the government. So if you take defense, so they need to monitor our country 24/7. They need to surveillance for the some terrorist attack, and they need to take a decision on real time. They should not wait for like if they miss 1 hour or 1 day video surveillance, that will end up in a terrorist attack. So they need to be very attentive with the data, and they need to take action on it. So government is a big user of machine learning and big data, I would say. And third is the insurance. So if you are if you can you will be claiming some insurance, but is that a genuine claim, we need to see. So for that we have a prediction by using some features, we will be predicting whether it is a genuine insurance, or it will be giving some recommendations. So this kind of insurance you can take, some recommendation systems are there in the insurance process and in healthcare. So like I said, we are monitoring the health of these patients, and for that some clinical trials are also happening. So while doing the clinical and non-clinical re- trials, so that need to be monitored, that need to be predicted properly. And third is the media and entertainment and gaming. So if you see the media, like we can take an example like Netflix. Somebody is on
Excuse me,
ground.
Prakash sir, 1 minute. 1 minute. Dr. Chitra ma'am, Chitra ma'am, can you please mute your audio?
It is already mute, Tane.
Chitra ma'am?
Yes.
No, ma'am, you have enabled your audio. We are able to hear. It's disturbing, ma'am. Can you please mute your audio?
Okay. Okay.
Yes, it's now clear. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So we'll see the media and entertainment. So if you take the media, like we have a Flipkart, Netflix and Amazon Prime. So they are giving a recommendation, but they are using the recommendation system and to recommend their series, web series kind of thing. And they are also using a big data to store all their shows. So they are also handling if you take like in the pandemic period, they are in some channels they are giving a old show, so they need to store it somewhere. So they are generating the data 24/7. They are giving the data 20/7, and they are storing it somewhere. So that storage of unstructured data, and they need to query on that data, and they are giving at that time. So in media domains also they are using this and if you take the journalism, so they will be using mostly the insights. They will be getting the insights from the insight from our, like if you take an IPL game, so they will be posting some queries, polling, and in a real time way they will be taking the tweets from their Twitter by using some API. So they will be giving a real time polling these solutions, how many people are reacted to this poll, with the hashtag they will be searching, and they will be giving the polling results in a real time way. So these people are using an machine learning and big data concept very well. So let's so if you see the reasons, so these are the reasons which was given by the different type of industries like financial system, retail, technology, and travel and hospitality industries. So these are all the top reasons why they are converting to why they are using the machine learning, why they are using the AI concept and big data. So if you see the top one, so everybody was very keen about the customer experience, improve the customer experience. So for example, we'll take a banking system. Initially, if you want to do some process, if you want to do some processing, if you go to the bank, you will be spending half a day, at least half a day, or 1 day in a bank to solve that. But now it is not like that. So um, we have a mobile technology to handle that. While doing the mobile technology, they will be giving some predictions also there. So we don't need to worry about banking. We are getting a good experience in that. So like fraud detection also, it is one of customer experience improvement, whether we can trust the bank. So they are focusing on our experience. They're focusing on our importance. They know our importance, and they are handling that pretty well. And if you see the next point, the delivery of better performing content offers and experience. So we can take an example of retail process in this. So if you take previously the Flipkart, Amazons, it was not there, but now they are exist, and they do good good performance. They are giving a good recommendation system. They are giving a better solution. They are giving some big sales and all, but that never saw that kind of data they are and using some market basket analysis, some click stream data. They will be using it. If you do a, yeah, you mistakenly you have clicked a product, but that click was stored in the click stream data, they will be giving the recommendation based on the clicks also. But so they are using it in a good productive way. So the third is the performance metrics. So improve the performance metrics, and then increased use of analytics, including KPIs and customer insights. So based on our customers, for example, we can take will be example of a banking where they will be storing our trend, our our way of handling the transaction, our so if you see the trend is odd, they will be calling you. You will be your transaction was normally will be in a normal way, like you mostly don't do a transaction more than 50,000, or you don't do a transaction more than 20,000, like that. If there is a big transaction happen, they will be, or suddenly after the transaction happen, they will be calling you. Is that you really you? For behind that, they are having a alert system to monitor your trend. So if there is some hard on the trend, so they will give a alert, and they will ask you. If it is not you, then they will block the transaction, and they will stop that they will lock your system. So those kind of reasons, they are using the AI system, and they are giving a good solution for us. So let's see, these are the some big data landscapes, so big data technologies which is available in the market. So if you see the base, so we have a map produce Hadoop. So these are the main, and some of some this infrastructure providers like a Cloudera, Hortonworks. So these are the infrastructure providers. We have some example, and the infrastructure we can see the Google, Azure, Amazon, AWS. Some of the products available, tools available in real time now for us to use. Okay, yeah, we'll see about the Hadoop now. So this is the main framework. It is a framework for handling big data analytics to that allow for the distributed processing of the large set of. So this is the backbone of the processing. So this is a fault tolerant distributed system for data storage, which is highly scalable. So this HDFS system is highly scalable. For that, we have a mechanism to architecture to handle that. And this Hadoop concept was initially proposed by the Google, which is a GFS, which I mentioned earlier. So based on that white paper, Doug Cutting from Yahoo, he developed a concept called the Hadoop. So based on this concept, it evolved eventually, and this is the architecture of Hadoop. So if you see the two main concepts here, I'm not included the MapReduce, which is a little old now. So we are using a different processing mechanism that I'll share in this next slide. So if you see this data storage process, we have a HDFS, so which is a Hadoop distributed file system. And the for a processing, this is for a resource maintenance and the resource management scheduling process. We have an yet another resource negotiator. So if you see these two components of Hadoop, so we can see it is in the master slave components. So for if you take HDFS, the master nodes are in the name node, and the worker node or slave nodes are the data node. So this name node will have all the metadata about the data node. So this will have this name node is responsible for having the replicas of the data also for a data failure happens or not. So for that they will be having some replication. By default it is a 3. So these if you save one table or one file, so that file will be replicated three times, and it will be stored in a different data nodes. If one data node fail, then it will take the data from the another data node, which will solve our failure, which will solve our failure of any data nodes. And you may ask, what if data name node failure? So for that we have a standby name node. So for a standby name node will be getting the will get active when some name node for some reason it is taking down for doing some patching process, they will take down this active name. So while doing that, so this name node will have the metadata of these, but the standby node will also need to know the same process, right? So for that we have a journal node, or we can use a shared edit logs. So these shared edit logs will be taken from the secondary name node. See, secondary name node is not the replacement of the name node. So this is the supporter of the name node, which will have information about the logs, some edit log fs image from the name node. It will store it. It will store the image of that current name active name node, and it will help the standby name node to get those details about the data nodes and its current whether if you deleted something, that will also be in that logs, and it will mention, it will tell this name node to all the history of this active name node. And it may also use the journal node. So this journal node will be updated continuously by active. It will get the continuously logs from active name node, and it will store it. Once the active node failed, we have a monitoring, and we have a monitoring tool called a zookeeper. By using that zookeeper, this this name node, standby name node will be triggered as an active, and it will get the journal nodes data into this, and it will behave as a master node for this. And this will it will start the process, and it will be maintaining the data from that. So this is the HDFS architecture. And the next one is a yarn. So this will be used for resource management and scheduling concept. So if an application is submitted for any processing, you want to do some word count, you want to query on the data. So for that you need to get the processing, right? So for that processing we have an yarn. We can use MapReduce in a Hadoop architecture one. We were using a MapReduce concept. It for the in MapReduce concept, it was dealing all the things like it was dealing data processing, it was dealing scheduling concept also. But due to some if something failure happened in the MapReduce, then the processing is completely stopped. To overcome that, they have splitted the scheduling process and processing scheduling tasks separately and processing separately. So for scheduling they have created a yarn. So this yarn, we have a resource manager as the name node, and a node manager as the slave node. So when you submit an application, it will negotiate the containers, it will negotiate some of the resource from the resource manager by the application manager, and it will invoke the node manager to start an application. And this node manager will create an container, and it will start the map master to do the map application from data node side. So this is the architecture. So if you see, most of them are in the master slave node. So if anything happened also, it will be replaced with the next negotiator, and there will be a continuous heartbeat will be shared between the master and slave node to maintain whether this data is active or not. If it is not active, then it will replace that with the different name node, different resource manager, different node manager, uh, for making the processing and making the storage available all the time. So we'll be having some good performance, highly availability from because of this architecture. And these are the characteristics of Hadoop. Like I said, it is like this data node which I mentioned, the slave nodes, right? So that is in the commodity hardware. So we can have normal CPUs as a commodity, and we can include if you want to scale. So if you want to add more data, it is very easy from Hadoop side. We can easily increase the size of the data. But in if you take the traditional way, it is very difficult. They need to replace all overall machines, and they need to do some migration task to make it big. So that was very tedious task previously. But by using Adobe, it is a like we can do the commissioning and decommissioning process very easily. and economics. So like I said, only we need to spend for the only we need to make sure the name node, so that name node need to be in that only name node we need to make it in a costly like good hardware, but for the data node we can have a normal commodity hardware and scalable. And the main important is a parallel processing. So if a task only if one task is done by one person is not equal to that one task done by four-person. So when we do the distributed way of processing, so the efficiency and the results given is very quick, and it will be very quality data also. So like for that Hadoop is a good option to do that. And automatic failover. So for because of this master slave architecture, there is a no failover we can see. There will be automatic way to trigger the node active. Like for example, I mentioned about the zookeeper. So if a name node is failure happen on the active name node, then the next standby name node will be active, which will be happening in an automatic way. We will not do any process there. And previously we were taking the data to processing stage, so the data transformation between that processing task was very high. But now we are taking the process to the data where the data results, and we are doing that. And yeah, these are all the characteristics of the Hadoop. So next we'll see about a Spark. So this Spark, as I mentioned, right? So for processing, previously we had a MapReduce, but the MapReduce performance was not that much good. The Spark performance is very good because it is having a in-memory computation, and it is using some DAG process inside it. So because of this in-memory and a DAG, this Spark is having a good performance speed to process the data. So this Spark is uh, we can have a Spark as a standalone, or we can integrate with the Yarn, or integrate with it Mesos also. We can keep it as a cluster. So this Spark have a multiple components, which will have all kind of processing technique. For example, if you don't want to do some core technology, you want to use SQL kind of thing, like we are good in SQL. So for the like Hive, we have a separate Hadoop technology, Hive, Impala kind of thing. But inside Spark also we have a component called Spark SQL. And next we need to do some streaming data. So for streaming data, there is a separate component also available, like Storm, Flink is there to handle the streaming. But inside Spark, we have a Spark streaming, so we don't need to go anywhere. We have a complete set of technologies available in the Spark. And next is the MLlib for machine learning. So machine learning is good one of the main component utilized nowadays. And next is the graphics. And these, I mean, we can program this Spark in multiple languages like R, Python, Scala, Java. We can do multiple kind of core API we can generate. So it is a very user friendly, and it is having a it consists all kind of a data processing stage. We can do the batch process, we can do some near real time streaming process, we can handle machine learning, we can do some tree computation by using graph technology. So we have everything inside the Spark components to do the data processing. We can integrate this with Yarn or Map Hadoop to utilize the HDFS, and Yarn as a resource manager, and Spark as a data processing is a perfect combo for any enterprise applications. So we'll see the Spark architecture. So this Spark architecture is also a master slave component. So master is like the driver program, and the slave is a worker node. So when an application starts, it will Spark application start. It will create a Spark context, a Spark session inside the Spark driver program, and it converts our task into a DAG process, and it will do the optimization, and it will submit to the cloud manager, cluster manager. So this cluster manager is for to take the resources. So this will integrate with Yarn to get the resources for your application, and it will negotiate with the resource manager, and it will assign some containers to your application, and it will start. So when it start, it will be dependent on your request. So here it is given a two worker node created for it. Inside a worker node, we have an executors to do the real task. So in driver node, it divided the jobs into multiple uh, separated executors, and these executors will do the real task inside by doing some stages. Okay, now we'll see the Hadoop ecosystem. So somebody's talking. Can you be on mute? Okay. This is the
Sir Balu sir, can you please mute your audio? Sir, can you please mute your audio? Balu sir, your audio has been enabled. Can you please mute it? Disturbing our class.
okay. So this is the normal Hadoop ecosystems. We have multiple components also, but it is having some limited components. So if you see base, we are doing some data ingestion.
I think okay,
So
Prakash, you can go ahead. He's not.
yeah, yeah. So we have a data ingestion by using Flume technology or Scoop technology. For Flume, it will handle some unstructured and semi-structured data, and for if you have, we need to do some data by using normal MySQL and Oracle. Also, we need to do some insights, right? So for that, we have a Scoop to get the data into HDFS and do some analysis. So these are the data ingestion process, and then this is the storage like HDFS. We have HDFS. We have if you want to do some NoSQL, we have a HBase also here. So this is the storage unit, and then the resource manager we have Yarn. For processing, we can use MapReduce. If you want a in-memory processing, we can have a Spark, and some SQL-like program. We can do some Impala, Hive, Drill. We have for streaming technology, we have a Kafka and Storm, and we have Flink also. For machine learning, we have Mahat and Spark MLlib. For scripting, for searching, we have a Solar and a Pig also there. For scheduling process, we need to create some workflows and all right. For that, we have a component called Uzi for scheduling the components. And as I mentioned, the Zookeeper. So Zookeeper is for configurations and coordination management. So this will also one of the components, and Ambari is for monitoring the components. So this is a sample architecture, sample ecosystems of the Hadoop. So we have more actually. So there are more open source. These are all actually not these are all, everything is in open source. So we don't need to pay for anything. So it is everything is open out, and we can use it in our Hadoop cluster if you want to. Okay, now we'll see a use case from Uber. So here I'll be sharing some details how Uber was handling their data in recent years, and how they evolved into big data, and how they used the big data to tackle them, how they use the uh, data to use the machine learning, and use the AI concept in that to train their model. So if you see the old data, like a old architecture, so which is prior to 2014, so they were having a separate individual PostgreSQL and MySQL. So if you see that for each service they have a separate data storage, but they were not able to combine. They were not able to have a combined set of knowledge. But the size of the data is also very few, 100 GB data. 100 to 1 TB data only they were having, and latency is very free. Latency means the getting the insights, getting the process done. Um, it is the speed of getting the process action. So it is very high because it is having it is in the separate nodes, and it can able to do that very quickly because it only handled the structured kind of data. It was only having a structured data, and they were able to give a good result on this. But eventually the data got increased, and the data types also increased. Like we have unstructured data, semi-structured data also coming into picture. So for that, this architecture was not helpful for them. So for that, they have introduced first gen model for in big data era. So if you see, they have started to use Kafka for a streaming to get the streaming data into a cloud technology, and they were also having a separate DBs for handling those. So they need to do some ETL process on the top of that, and they were using a data warehouse. So in this data warehouse, this was also working with the schema way, structured way. So in this way also it have some approximately 10 TB of data, and latency is very large. The time taken to analyze and process the data is was taking very long. Like it take 1 to 2 days to process the data. On top of that, they were doing some modeling, some machine learning experiments. They were doing some ad hoc activities also they were doing. But this is not a good solution for them. So they need to evolve in the next very recent year. Next, so if you take from 2014 to 15, they were using it, but this was not successful for them. So they started to use a different architecture for them. So which was using Hadoop. So previously, mm, they were using ingestion ETL process only by using a data Vertica. So this Vertica was not able to store some unstructured data. It was not able to do that. But because of this Hadoop and some pocket format, they were able to store that. And on top of this Hadoop, they were able to bring the data into a more structured way. So after doing some ETL process, some activity, they were able to flatten the data, and they were able to store it in the data warehouse. And on top of that, they were using a Hive and Spark application to do some more data feature generation, feature transformation for using a machine learning process. And if you see, this data size got increased. So from 100 TB to 10 petabyte within a year. So the latency is also little increased from 2 days to 1 day. So after this, in the this was this the data size is also increasing, but they were not able to process these kind of data. So they have generated a third gen data, which is the consequent here. They used a different architecture. So for that, they have an incremental ingestion. So incremental ingestion is it will be doing some streaming of data. It will be ingested in a batch phase, near time batch phase, and they have using a Howdy. So this is a uh, Hadoop architecture on top of Spark. They used some customized architecture based on Hadoop and Spark. They generated an architecture for them, and they started to use it. So when they use that without some, so if you see previously they were using some data warehouse. So they now completely using the Hadoop process, and they were able to do that. And if you see the data size of the third gen within a year, 10 petabyte got increased to 100. So within 1 year, the data become 10 times bigger. So they were able to do they were able to handle that, and they were able to give the latency also very less compared to previously. So previously it was taking 1 day to do some results, 1 day to do some activity, but now uh, they were able to give the results in within a 1 month 1 hour. They were able to do some activity on that historical data, and they were able to do the action. So you will be I have shared the link also. You can have a complete uh, uh, details about that article. So this article describes how they are handling the um, architecture and how they build the architecture, and they have discussed about their pain points, some limitations, some issues they faced, and they tackled by using a big data cluster. And this is a Uber training workflow model. So when you train a model, so you mainly you spend a time on data processing, pre-processing. So 80% of work is in the pre-processing and 20% of work in the modeling part. So that 80% of work, I mean, if you see the previous and all, they were using a normal TensorFlow normal way. But if you go into your real time, if you are involving in an enterprise, if you are in the industry, that is not enough. That will not able to do your all activity. So for that, they need to use a big data concept to do the data transformation, feature transformation. So if you use a normal pandas, so that will not, if you have a like a 200 MB of data, let's take an example, and you are doing some aggregation on top of that, it will take some time on that. But now we don't have a MBs of data, we have petabytes of data. So for to handle those petabyte of data, we need to do a transformation on big data by using Hadoop technology or Spark technology. So for that, if you see this model workflow, so there, okay. So feature normally, so this is their logical workflow. So if you see the optimized and workflow activity, so they are using a separate Spark setting for the each set of a workflow process, and they were able to generate a model by using this training historical data. So they were using a feature normalization and imputation. So for here, this feature normalization, they are using a Spark application and one not encoding. So yesterday they were mentioned about different kind of encoding. So this encoding is also one main. Uh, So encoding is a very important when you are considering a categorical data. So if you are having some categorical data, that need to be taken into converted into a numerical data. So to convert that, we have a one main encoding technique is an one-hot encoding. So they do that on top of this feature engineered data, and they were doing some training. So if you see this training process started and they will do this data split, and they started using the XGBoost. So this is one of the top trending model uh, algorithm used in real time actually. So many organizations are using XGBoost because of its accuracy compared to the other models. If you take neural networks and if you take some random forest, so comparatively the XGBoost was giving a good accuracy in I can say I used this in unstructured sorry, for a structured data for our banking data. So this XGBoost was giving a more accurate more accuracy compared to the other models. So this model was giving they used this model on tree partition, and they were using it for the training, and post training they were evaluating the model, and model generation was applied, and they were able to give the solution in a good way, process way. So you will be finding this in this article link, so you can check on this article how they are doing the productionizing the distributed XGBoost. So yeah, I'll give a demo on Google Cloud how we can start a cluster, how we can submit and spark sample application. I will be giving a demo on that. So if you consider there are multiple vendors for giving a big data solution and ML solution. One of them is Google. So there we have Microsoft Azure, AWS also. So for this POC, have taken a Google Cloud as my infrastructure. So if you see, they have giving a multiple services. For compute they have a multiple services, for storage they have a multiple. So only thing is we need to take which is compatible with our requirement. So based on our requirement we need to select the services, and we need to use that. So these are all storage services. These are all these storage services is for a normal. So we have a separate module for a big data. So if you see, we have a big data separate module. So for data proc is the cluster. So this cluster will generate by using initializing the name node, data node, Hadoop and Spark inside it, and it will be ready within the 5 minutes. So we can start using it. And this will be used when you are doing some real-time activity streaming applications. So this PubSub will be used when you are doing some streaming applications. So data flow is for some for workflow creations. And if you have a IoT devices, we can use this IoT product for using the IoT and BigQuery. So this is a structured way we can store it in a this is a very optimized, and this will give a good performance when you have a structured data. So these are all some of the big data. And if you see, there is a separate AI technology that I will give you a demo on this tomorrow. So today I'll be giving only the feature engineering concepts. So how we do the feature engineering based on by using a Spark application. So first of all, I used data from Kaggle, like credit card data set. So first of all, to start, we need to start a cluster. So for starting a cluster, we need to go to data proc from. So we need to go to the data block proc. So we have a different options. So cluster generation, jobs, we can submit a job after cluster is generated, and we can do some workflows. Like we can have a workflow flow of jobs we can do in the cluster. So yeah, so now we'll start a cluster. So for starting cluster, we can do UI way also. We can also do it in a command also. So this is a command we can give. We can specify the details, how we can, what are all the configurations we need to do on that. So we'll go with the UI way. So I'm going to create a cluster. So this cluster will have all Hadoop components. So this is the cluster name. I'm selecting the region. So this region is important. This is also one of the main thing. You need to keep all the regions in. If you want to do analysis, if you want to do different, you going to use a different components like Google Storage also. That if you have all the data in one region, that will be helpful for you because it will reduce your cost. So for our example, I'm going to use the US region only. And cluster mode, so we have a different cluster mode. As I said, we can have a single node cluster, so it will only have the master node, and this will also work as a worker node. So it will do all the things. It will monitor it. It will have a name node, data node, everything inside only one node, and it will give a solution. So this will be very basic, but for a real-time process, we need to go with the high availability or standard. So high availability is for a productionized application. uh, if you want to make your data, if you make your application all time available, you can go with the high availability mode. But for now, I'm going with the standard node with the one master and n number of workers. So I'm going to select machine type now. So for my for this POC, I'm going to keep yeah, standard 2. So it will have a 8 GB of RAM. So we can also have a different options. So these many RAMs we can give. So for now, I'm going to give a 8 GB of RAM for a master node. And for this purpose, I'm going to create a 50 GB of data. So now we will be specifying the worker node configuration. So for my worker node, so I'm going to have a normal, uh, like simple memory, 4 GB RAM process, and I'm going to give a 50, and I'm going to have a three worker node for me. This will enable us to work with the. If you enable this, we can see the web interface of this worker node, and I need to give a storage. So I'll use my So if you see, this is the main, so data proc image. So if you see this data proc image, so this is the version it will host in our cluster. So it will have a 10 point Hadoop 2.9 and Spark 2.3 in our data proc cluster. So if you want to, we will have a optional component. Like if you want to have Anaconda, if you want to have a Jupyter notebook, so we can check this and we use it. But for now, I'm not using any of this. I'm natively using a Spark only, so I'm going with Spark alone. So if you are working with some TensorFlow, some other extra applications, some extra packages, you can use Anaconda or Jupyter Notebook for your good interactivity. Okay, now I'm going to create it. So if you want to have a this is a you have given this selected the option, and it will, if you want to have a command line in future, you want to use the same configuration, you can use it by using this command line. So you can take it as a backup, and in future also you can give this to generate an application. Okay, so if I create it, it will start creation, but for now I'm going to um, start using this. So here also, if you see, my cluster name is this. I have enabled the gateway for web UI, and I'm using a bucket, Google storage bucket, and I'm using a region, US Central region, and master type is n1, so same structure, and disk size is 15, and I am having a worker node 3, and this is my worker node information, and this is my image information. So image information will have details about Hadoop version and Spark version, and I'm going to start it now. Before this, you need to install some Google SDK, so to interact with your cloud, and you need to authenticate it. So that I already did it. So yeah, I started the cluster now. I started creating the cluster. Yeah, it is creating now. We'll take a look. You can have also standalone. You can also use your native like Windows or a normal Ubuntu. If you have a local also, we can host it, but if you are considering Hadoop, we need to have a distributed way. So Hadoop is because we are using Hadoop because of distribution. So for that reason, I'm giving demo on the Google Cloud. We can also do that in a normal uh, local mode, single node cluster also. So it is starting. So let's take so if you see this, these are having some components, like we can monitor different, like yarn memory, yarn pending memory, HDFS capacity, and node manager details. Some tracking process we can use when you're in a production. This will be very helpful, and this will be give details about your jobs. Currently we didn't submit any jobs here, so once we submit a job, I'll be sharing that. So this will have the job details, and this is our VM instance. So if you see, I have started one master and three worker node. So this is my master node and three worker node, and you can have a take a look of configuration details. So yeah, so this is cluster name. So this will be used for any backup reason, and web inference. Web interface, I'll come this when we start the job. So now the job, it is still creating it. It will take like 1 minute. Yeah, we can also submit job now. So after that, if you want a job created, so you can create here by. So these are all the jobs I created previously. So this will have all the details about the jobs. So I created completed. So this is not based on your cluster. So this is these are all the different kind of jobs I created, and if I have any workflow created, so that will have here. So currently, yeah, it is still creating. Yeah, it is created now. So next we are going to submit a PySpark application. So for that we have a Spark job. So we can create it based on UI also. We can we can create in a command also. I'll show you how to create a job in UI. So first of all, we need a job. We need to mention the job type. So we have a different types of job we can submit in Dataproc. One is the Hadoop, normal Spark. So this will be this job we need to select when you are developing this based on the Scala or Java. If you developed based on our language, you can select this Spark. If you are developed based on the Python Spark, so you can use a PySpark. If you are submitting only a Hive command, some Hive scripts, so you can use a Hive. You can use a Spark SQL if you are only having some Spark SQL. So for this demo, I'm going to use PySpark. So I need to give the main Python file location. For me, I have pasted that Python program in Google Cloud storage. So this storage is like a repository for us in cloud. So so this is the storage. So this is like a repository. So this will host it will have all the data storage. We can configure that also. So for this process, I have created. This is my Prakash POC is the Google bucket I have created. So I'm going to select. I have pasted that stored my Python file here. So I'm going to use that. We need to mention the location of that. Yeah, we can paste it like that. And if you have some additional Python file like dependency files or some jar file, like if you want to use BigQuery, so BigQuery is one type of data storage where we will be using to store some feature transformed data. So we before using that, we need to give a dependency jar here and some archive files, some arguments. So for now, I don't need anything. So yeah, for now I just need to give the jar file if I need to use a Google Cloud, sorry, BigQuery. So yeah, this is a subsequent same. I mean, we can create a job based on that also. So if I create a job, yeah, it will start creating. But now I'm going to use in command line. So it will. So if you see, it is also having the same. So so I'm creating a Dataproc jobs. I'm going to submit a PySpark application. That main Python file is in this directory, and the we need to mention the cluster name where we need to start the cluster, and the region of the cluster. And if you want to do some extra jars, we can have it in this file. So yeah, we'll start it now. So I have started the cluster. So let's take a look of web inference here. So it will take some time. I'm doing some yeah I'll show you what I'm doing. So this is a Spark program which I'm currently running now. So this is a PySpark program. So initially we need to invoke PySpark session. Some dependency of this I'm using it. So for encoding process here, I'm doing some normal feature engineering process where I'm taking for numeric data. I'm taking some min, max, average count for that numerical data, and for categorical data, I'm doing some encoding process where I'm doing a string indexer, which is equal to the label encoding, and one not encoder, some vector assemble to assemble all the files. These are all the packages. So let's take the. So once my program invoked, so it will start the main program. So this is my main program. So this is the command to start a Spark application. So Spark session dot build dot app name Spark. So I'm just giving some name of my Spark, and I'm enabling the Hive support, and I'm creating it. So this command will create a Spark session, and I'm going to read the data. So I'm just reading the data from the Google storage from this directory. So I'm reading some home credit default risk from Kaggle. So I took some exam data set from that, and I'm reading the training data. So this is my store data. So this is the path of the data. So here I'm reading it spark.read.csv to read that, and I'm giving a inference schema, and header is true. I'm just printing it. And when you consider the Spark application, we need to optimize and tune our data very well. Without doing the optimization or tuning, your jobs will be running for more time, because we have the resources. We have the resources available. The thing is, we need to give the proper parameters, proper configuration to utilize that resources. So for one of that is the repartitioning. What I'm doing is, I'm reading this data, I'm partitioning it into 200, so it will be divided into 200 chunks, and the data transformation will happen in 200 set of data. I mean, this data will be divided into 200 sets, and it will process the data in 200 parallelly. It will process the 200 process, and this is persist. So when I do the persist, this data which I splitted into 200 will be stored in memory. So if we store it in memory, the processing speed will be very good comparatively if you are not using a in-memory process. So Spark is having a in-memory capability. So I'm using a persist here. So I'm doing some count check, and I'm going to read a bureau data. So you will be this bureau data is like that customer in how many banks he got loans, what is historical data about his activity, his behavior, and his loan information that will be in this bureau CSV file. So you will be if you search home credit risk in Kaggle, you will be finding this data set. Yeah, I'm just reading this bureau data. So from this bureau data, I'm also doing the same repartitioning persist, and I'm going to join this with my source table, and I'm generating it. So for processing the numeric data, for all the columns, all the features, I'm doing the aggregation here. So I'm doing minimum, maximum, sum, count, mean. So if you do this normal 5 action in your pandas or some native library, so it will take more time if you have a multiple if you have more data. So but if in the Spark application, since I'm using a persistence and repartitioning, it will not take that much time, and it will be giving the data very quickly. And I'm just joining this with my source application. I'm just printing it. So this is a very small thing we will be doing in our day-to-day machine learning application to generate a feature transformation. So yeah, my job is completed now. So if you see, we have multiple columns available. So these many variables I'm processing. So if you take, so in normal way, in normal pandas, when we are working, so we'll be using only handful of features, handful of variables only will be working. But in real time scenario, you will be having like more than 200, more than 300 raw data will be getting, and we will be having a different kind of source where we'll be getting a few more details about the data, few more data that we need to join to get a information about that. So for that, we need to join, like for example in here, I'm joining with the bureau data. This is, so in real time we'll be joining like this. We'll be joining with multiple source data, and this is having this many columns. But after feature enrichment, these many column will be converted into 5. So if you take these, right, so this into 5. So for each feature, I'm creating a min, max, median, count, so that will be feature transformation. So if you do this process in so if you see the data count, so this is having some 3 lakh data. 3 lakh records, and this is having some 17 million 7 yeah 17 lakhs of data. So I'm processing that. So if you consider the millions and billions of transactions, so the way of processing is very huge, and we need to utilize the all the way. So if you see, these are all some sample data available. So these are all the sample columns available, we have generated now. So these are all the columns we generated now, and I saved it in Google Cloud. So this is a small feature engineering application. So tomorrow I'll be showing how based on this data, how we can create a model. So if you see the this is the Yarn application I mentioned, right? So this is the resource manager. So we'll be getting a details about the resource manager. So if you see the current active node, which is data node, is 3, and master node is 1. So this will have information about the application which I ran. So currently I ran only one application. So if you want to take a look how this application ran, application details, you can click on this, and yeah, you will be having details about this. And next is the HDFS name node. So this will give information about my data node. So if you see, this is the Hadoop name node. So this will have information about the name node and the active node. So if you see, we have a three live nodes which is online now. So we can have a detailed information about this here. So if you want to separately, we need a details about a data node, we can go here. So if you see, my 3 nodes are active, so it is in service now. So we can have a look of this data node if you want. So this is a UI for Hadoop. Yeah, then Spark application history. So once your Spark application completed, that will be stored in the history server. So if you want to know how this application processed, yeah, we'll take a look of how it ran. So it initially it that small that application which I submitted, it divided the task into that divided the program into 15 jobs, and we'll take a event how it so this is how it processed way. Yeah, we'll take a one. So if you see, this one job, it was handled by the 2 stages. It is having some 2 stages. We'll have a DAG. So this is the which DAG. Yeah, like it created some optimization way optimization, and that some it does some optimization and some logical planning before we start the application. So this is the plan. So after planning, it divided this job into 2 stages. So this is the 2 stages, and this is the 2 stage detail. So this way, this job was completed, and it submitted here. So we have a jobs, and this jobs is divided into stages. And if you store any data, that will be in here. And this is my environment details. So yeah, these are some configurations. If you want to change, we can change it here, like by using for this application, what are all the configurations was given. So we can have a look at this page. And executors. So this is the executors where the real task happened. So if you see, I have a one driver node and 2 executors for my application. I did this I have a 2 worker node for me, and these 2 worker node worked. So if you see the input size, it handled this many MBs of 600, nearly half a GB of data. It was working, and it completed within a minute. Like it only took 2 minutes to process that, and it completed it. So yeah, so that's it now. So this is how we do real time in industries, how we do the feature transformation. And inside Spark, we have a multiple way to handle. We have a native library called MLlib. So if you consider some of the machine learning feature transformation process or some techniques, we can use that here in. and we have a Java. We can also use like a Spark core for any logical. If you have any large functions to do, we can have that in here by using Java, Spark. Sorry, we can use it. We can do it in different languages, as I mentioned. So we have a Java, Scala, Python, and R. So it is having some community to help us. So that is a very. So we have these kind of. So this is how we do in real time. How we submit a job and we store it in cloud, or we store it in on-prem HDFS. So that's it now. So tomorrow I'll be giving a more demo on how machine learning uses these data and how we do the AutoML. I'll be giving more details on the AutoML. So in Google Cloud and in on-prem data. Yeah. So any queries?
Yeah.
Data.
Yeah, thank you, Prakash. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prakash, am I audible to you?
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah.
You finished your session?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. And participants, if you have any queries, you can ask. Post in the chat.
Niket ma'am,
Yeah, Sibi.
actually there is no queries in the chat box ma'am. All the participants, given that the session was very informative
Okay.
and they have appreciated the Prakash session.
Okay, fine.
Niket ma'am, you can conclude the session ma'am. And the participants today, we don't have any feedback and attendance link because the session.
Yeah, today we don't have any feedback. Last session, and we'll be considering attendance for all the 5 days for issue. Thank you so much. Sibi.
Yes ma'am.
Yeah, we inform the participants. I
Yes.
think we can wind
Yes
up
ma'am,
the
we can
session.
wind up because there is no feedback today ma'am. We can wind up the session.
Okay.
Thank you
Okay,
Niket
Sibi.
ma'am.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Sibi.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you
you,
ma'am.
participants.